Hey, this is Sean Hall with the EOT training. This is a mid-season 7-minute flash that I wanted to present. Usually we bring different speakers in the spring and fall, but I thought it'd be interesting to do something during the season. So we're going to do this over the next 5 to 7 weeks, introducing you to a prospective official that is making his way up the ranks in officiating. And I wanted to welcome in Mike Millione. Mike is from the Washington, D.C. area. Mike, good morning and welcome.
Thanks for having me, Sean. Looking forward to being with you.
Yeah, Mike, hey, tell us a little bit more about your growth in officiating, your passion to start officiating, and what pushes you to continue to try to get better each and every year.
Yeah, so just starting my 19th year actual officiating. I started in college. The intramural director was also the women's basketball coach, and they had a lot of fraternity teams that were out of control. So she came and asked some of our basketball players to referee these games. So it was a way for us to get some extra money in college, and it turned out I kind of enjoyed it. And then when I graduated, there was a lady in our local area who had a little kids league. They needed officials. So I started doing that. And from there, some of the people who were actually officiating in my area had kids in that league. They saw something in me, invited me to come really learn how to do it. And that was 19 years ago. And, here I am today, still loving every minute of it, going out there, trying to get plays right and trying not to get yelled at too much.
Awesome. Well, Mike, there's a lot of members of our community that I think have started in the same way, whether it's in college or they graduated and played in college and they're looking to do the same thing. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the things that these individuals should concentrate on as they move? Because I'd imagine this is a different community, a different era that we're going through right now in officiating in itself. A lot of popularity, a lot of people getting into it. Could you share a little bit more about your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the best opportunities now that I didn't have, I know a lot of colleges have NERSA, and they actually have programs to teach you how to officiate. When I started, it was here's a whistle, try not to have any fights and have fun. I didn't know anything about the actual rules. As a player, as a coach, everybody thinks they know the rules. It wasn't until I started actually going through classes and getting formal training that I realized how much I didn't know. The advantage now, though, is that there is so much training available. There's programs like EOT where we're getting opportunities to talk to different officials. There are opportunities to learn, opportunities to talk basketball. We didn't have that when I was coming up. It was go sit in this class, try not to fall asleep because it was the most boring thing you've ever seen. There was no video, and you just kind of had to learn from war stories, which there's a lot of value in that, but it can't help you get better. So my first 3 or 4 years of middle school, high school basketball officiating, I thought I was good. Then I went to camp and I realized I might have been good in my area, but that was far from good, what we know, and what you teach with EOT, Sean.
So, Mike, you mentioned, going to camp and things of that nature. Talk to us a little bit more about, that individual that comes out of college, wants to go to camp because they want to get hired. They want to get hired to a Division I conference, or they want to go into the NBA. And so they rush into going to camp and paying, a large amount of money to go, and then the expectation falls short of maybe what they thought it was going to be.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest uh, challenges for officials, myself included, is that we all want the NCAA tournament. We all want the championship games, but we want it now. And we don't understand that it's a process. Sean Hall didn't get to the ACC tournament his first year, right? nobody gets anywhere their first year. Now, everybody's journey is different. Some people, myself included, we take a little longer to get our opportunities. Other people, it seems like they get their opportunities really fast. The challenge for each of us is we have to be ready for when that opportunity opens. Because if you're not ready and the door opens, when you walk through, it's a real fast and hard fall. But if you're ready and you walk through and you're prepared and you're sinking to the level of your training, then you're going to have longevity in this avocation. So really, we should be focusing on the process. We should be focusing on ourselves, right? It's not me against my partners. It's not me against anybody else. It's us, the crew, against the tape. If every game I'm getting better, then I'm building upon my foundation. And when things get hard, I'm not going to panic. I'm going to have had the training and I'm going to be able to look like I'm rising to that occasion. But the reality is, I've put in the work. And so I've prepared myself for this situation. And so if you go to camp with unrealistic expectations, like you said, Sean, you're going to be donating a lot of money to somebody. But if you work regularly, get in the rule book, work on your signals in the mirror, do all the things that build that foundation, then start going to camps that are appropriate for the level that you're at. You don't go from high school to Division One. It's rare. Some people, have the opportunity, but that's not the norm. So you got to have to go to look at where you are. Are you getting playoff games at the high school level? Well, now it's probably time to think about college. Are you getting playoff games at the Division III level? Maybe it's time to think about Division II. Same thing, Division II to Division I. It's a process. Nobody gets there from, just showing up. So we have to have those realistic expectations, and we have to approach camp not as something that I have to do, because you really don't, but it's something that it's continuous education. I know in my job, we're required to continually take training classes, do things online to help with our technical skills. Same thing with basketball officiating. You're encouraged to participate in camps, and you have to find the right camp. EOT is a great learning camp. That's what you need to prepare yourself for the tryout camp. The tryout camp is your job interview.
Well said, Mike. Well said. So you mentioned that, the difference between a teaching camp and a tryout camp. I think that's a really important distinction. And you mentioned earlier when you started, you mentioned that the passion that you had as a former player and still being able to be connected to the game and a part of the game. And you were able to unleash a new area in officiating that you never knew, right? Looking back now, can you talk a little bit more about everybody can't make it to Division One. Everybody can't make it to the NBA, but the passion still can be there. The interest can still be there. And then lastly, talk to those people that are in certain areas around the country or around the world that possibly don't have, that mentor sitting next to them or that mentor in the same city as them. And then the avenues maybe that they could consider in this plight in the process to get better.
Absolutely. So, I never in a million years even considered officiating. I played. I thought maybe coaching. Then I realized I didn't want to deal with parents. But so when I got into officiating, I wasn't sure, right? And people would tell you, well, you're going to start looking at the game differently. You're going to go to the games. You're going to watch the officials. You're going to start watching it differently. And I didn't believe anybody, right? So then it felt like overnight, but I would go to games and I'm not watching the game anymore. I'm watching the officials. I'm looking at the plays. And that's when it clicked for me, like, I really like this. And it's a way for me to remain competitive, right? When we're playing, you're trying to score, you're trying to defend. Well, as a referee, you're trying to get plays right. You're trying to referee that elusive, perfect game that we're never going to get. So it was a way for me to stay competitive in the sport that I loved, and in an avocation that, was financially advantageous to my family. It's a great side job. No matter what level you're working, you can't go and get a part-time job that pays better than officiating. That being said, nowadays it's a lot easier because of technology to find somebody and get connected to somebody who can help you. Sean, what you are doing with EOT, bringing officials from all over the country, they're giving us knowledge, right? And we're building a community of people where it doesn't matter if we're locationally close. All we gotta do is jump on a Zoom call. So nowadays, it's so much easier to build a relationship with somebody, exchange information, and stay in touch. Email plays, text plays, get on a Zoom call, break down plays. And there's so many avenues, whether it's EOT, whether it's some of the others, there's opportunity and education out there. But each of us individually have to be motivated and have to have that desire and want that knowledge. If you're just satisfied going out, collecting a check and running up and down the floor, well, then you're not going to be very successful. But if you want to learn how to do it and you take the initiative to latch on to people, personally, I've been fortunate. I've latched on to you many years ago with EOT, and you have continued to pull me along, continued to mentor me, continued to challenge me. And so it's a great example of what can happen. You didn't make any phone calls for me and said, hey, put this guy on staff. That's not what this is all about. You challenged me to continue to grow, continue to get better. And then naturally, that is what has led to some of the success that I've had.
Mike, thank you. Well said. And we're very proud of you and what you've accomplished so far. Mike, you're fortunate to get a contract in the Big East, the Atlantic 10, the Colonial, the Patriot and Ivy. You've done an exceptional job. People on the line now think that was the hard thing, is to get hired. But realistically, please close with a couple comments about what's necessary to maintain and stay on staff.
Well, as hard as it is to get hired, I would argue that it's even harder to stay there, because there are 100 people waiting in the wings that want my job, right? And so there's, every time you make a mistake, well, guess what? All those 100 people are talking about it. Now, it takes a lot of mental toughness to make those mistakes, but allow those mistakes to be learning opportunities, as opposed to allow those mistakes to be nails in your coffin. As I had said before, the perfect game is elusive, but we have to be perfect at the end of the games. So, once you get to a certain level, that's when the real challenge begins, because you have to continue that grind, continue the physical fitness, continue the rules knowledge, continue the relationship building. Every level and every conference you get hired, there's a new set of relationships that you have to start building. Those coaches, they don't trust you just because you're on their game. You have to interact with them. You have to communicate with them. You're starting from ground zero. And sometimes as officials, we're our own worst enemy by what we say. And if you say something sarcastically, You say something inappropriate. I know really good officials who have negatively been affected by that. In the moment, the heat of the moment, they react instead of respond. And as a result, they're negatively affected. So every level that you move up, whether it's the Big East, whether it's JV to varsity, whether it's high school to junior college to Division III and up, every time you move up a level, you're basically starting over from ground zero. And even when you get to the top, those officials that are working the Final Four, okay, there's only one official at the end of the year who's ever happy. And that was the person that's assigned the referee position on that national championship. The other two don't understand why they weren't the referee, right? So there's always this negative energy, but you can choose to use that as motivation to continue to get better, or you can choose to look at it in a negative light and let it affect you. But, getting there is hard. Staying there is that much harder because now you have a target on your back. But the good part is with groups like EOT, there's several others that I'm affiliated with. Like, it's all about training, right? And so if you can find a group that is focused on the process, focused on training, all that other stuff you can block out. It becomes noise, and you just keep getting better. Let everybody talk, right? Let the haters hate. Just keep grinding, and eventually, it's the pressure that makes a diamond. And without that pressure, there wouldn't be that reward. And so, for me, that's the way I approach my situation.
Mike, I appreciate you taking time today and sharing the nuggets of knowledge. It's the beginning of the second half of the season for 2024. It's time to get those nuggets grind, and the grind is going to start with the conference season and everything. Thanks for sharing with us, Mike. Thanks for being part of EOT, and we'll look forward to watching you on TV. Best of luck the rest of the season.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Sean.